In Spain, of course, are being met with a lot of resistance from the main government there. What is the situation as we speak? Because I understand Catalonian leaders were to institute that forced referendum even by this week.
Well, it's a form of cessation, if I may call it. A cessation, basically, it's a withdrawal of a large entity, most of the time political, from the whole area. Now, Catalonia isn't part of Spain. What they're asking for is they want to be independent. They want to run things their own way. There's a very interesting video I saw where people who are Catalans, if I may call, they have their own language, they have their own food, they have their own tradition. What they're basically saying is they want their independence away from Spain. So now, on October 1st, they had a referendum, and there were protests all around the town, where like 900 people were injured. In that protest, they were basically asking for their independence.
Right.
We can also see this back here in Africa. Nigeria, remember back in 1967 to 1970, there was the Biafra War, where the separatists, basically, they were calling for their own kind of independence from the other community. So that just comes down to what cessation is. And you can remember even here in Kenya, we have a little bit of that discussion.
That's going on. I mean, I think it's good to draw lessons from Spain and Catalonia on how this might turn out. But what was the outcome of the referendum vote that the Spanish government says was a banned referendum to begin with? Most of the Catalans, the Catalonians, voted out. They wanted to be out. They wanted to be independent out of it. But the king specifically says this is they breached the constitution, which is definitely not right, something they will not accept. Right. Yeah. Is this something we're likely to watch out for? Because I understand the Catalan leaders also taking very hardline stances, saying if majority of the Catalans voted out, then we will surely implement this. I understand that is to be done this week. What is the expectation? What are we likely to see there? The expectation definitely is going to be hard on how people take this, but definitely there is a chance that they will be able to be away. They'll be able to take their independence away from Spain. All right. That's how Well, we keep keeping an eye on that, hoping the conversation on the same in Kenya does not continue on the same. But let's head over to Las Vegas now, where a 64-year-old armed man with more than 40 high-caliber weapons rained down gunfire on a Las Vegas country music festival on Sunday, slaughtering at least 59 people in the largest mass shooting in modern U.S. history before killing himself. Some fleeing fans trampled on each other as police scrambled to contain the gunman. The FBI has now focused investigations to the shooter's girlfriend, who is considered as a person of interest. Pictures there, also the spirit, you see coming out of Americans there. I mean, even while the shooter was active, I remember seeing some videos of Americans who were still on the ground trying to help others out of this. And this, of course, has brought back for the conversation on gun control in the U.S. President Donald Trump, of course, taking a very different stance from his predecessor, Barack Obama, who tried to ensure controls in terms of gun use and ownership there. What is the latest from this? This was a very unfortunate incident, really. There was a crowd. People were coming in for a music festival for the country musicians, all right? So, and Jason Aldean, I mean, he's one of my favorite country musicians. One of the best country musicians, indeed. And this shooter was at a hotel just nearby, known as Mandalay Bay Hotel. He was on the 32nd floor, basically shooting basically on the people there who are busy enjoying the music. This man, he doesn't have a criminal history, basically. He was known to be wealthy. He was retired from the work he was doing. He just shot at people, which was very sad indeed. And it's known as the deadliest mass shooting that has ever occurred in the States. Yeah, in modern U.S. history. What's interesting now is that investigators are focusing the investigation on his girlfriend, because I understand that he was booked at the Mandalay Bay Hotel under his girlfriend's name, who at the time of the shooting was out of the country. So a lot of questions, first of all. Was she with him when he was checking into the hotel? Because, I mean, when you're clearly a very masculine man checking in with a female name, and you do not have the female there with you, it raises a lot of questions as to whether it was an inside job, as to how he got more than 20 high-caliber weapons into this hotel to begin with. And the girlfriend, actually, I've watched a number of videos from the States, and this lady did not know this was happening at all.
he actually said he booked a flight for her, cheap flight to the Philippines to go and visit her family. She had no idea this is what he was planning. So it's somehow like he sent her there and then decided to do the shooting.
And I saw interviews with his brother as well.
Who was very devastated.
Very devastated, very confused,
sure exactly
as to what's happening. And that also brought to the conversation on journalists. Because fine, I understand we have to get the scoop of the story.
Yeah.
It's our mandate. We're on the field. Yeah. But journalists, as soon as they got the brother, seemed to really hound him. Yeah. Despite the fact that he clearly did not have any more information, did not give him time to
was traumatized
digest what was going on.
Speak. He was traumatized, but the journalists were all asking questions. You want to get the story, you want to get the scoop.
Right. And sometimes you have to understand it's it's all about the scoop sometimes.
And what is also interesting about the Las Vegas story is that this was not the only place he was planning the shooting. He was also planning in Chicago and Boston. He was also planning to do that in those towns also. So that means it was a well-executed plan all the way.
Have we had any international terror group or any gang that has come out and said he was working with us, he was part of us? Because many times we see them also claim responsibility.
Yeah. There was a rumor, if I may call it, that the ISIL claimed responsibility, but not really. And the questions people are asking is it because he's a white man that he's not known as a terrorist now? Or what is this exactly about? Right. And you remember the U.S., when it comes to gun control, it is a very big issue there. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So pictures there, of course, going on. And like I said, the disaster management and response to this incident was rather commendable, so to speak. I mean, this was a concert with about 20,000 people. And the fact that 59 lost their lives is a large number, but the situation could have been a lot worse considering, the number, considering he had a machine gun there. So let's take a look at that, because this has been considered not the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history, but in modern U.S. history. That's 2017 there, Las Vegas, Nevada, 58 people. That has now risen to 59 people because there are those who are still battling several gunshot wounds. But let's take a look at that. Not very long ago, that was in 2016 in Orlando. I believe that was in a nightclub there, a shooting, 40 people
dead.
That
was ISIL that
they did claim responsibility. All right. 2007, Virginia Tech, that is how many? 32 people are dead. And the sheer numbers in their tens is just shocking. But I was watching one of the CNN analysis there, and the fact that we only document these killings when we have these numbers. You see 23 in 1991, 14 in 2015. But when we have, shootouts where 2 or 3 people are killed, we do not report them as mass shootings. And that is underplaying the situation until it gets out of hand. I don't know what, Donald Trump's stance has been on this.
He's pretty sad about it, but there's nothing he's talking about when it comes to gun control, and that is the main issue there. He's kind of dilly-dallying when it comes to it, really. Right. So he's not talking about gun control really yet.
Right. So, of course, a lot of Kenyans will be, a lot of Americans, rather, beg your pardon, will be taking Donald Trump, into accountable, for what he does next, because former President Barack Obama was very strict, or very vocal that the U.S. does indeed need gun control, something that has seemed to have spiraled out of control at the time in the U.S. But let's move on. And families of those killed in clashes between security forces and protesters in Cameroon's English-speaking areas are still trying to come to terms with the death of their loved ones. Most of the affected families have accused the police of extrajudicial killings, saying their loved ones were not involved in the protests. According to Amnesty International, at least 17 people have died in the clashes in Cameroon. All right, so we're seeing pictures there, of course, those protests by Cameroonians from English-speaking regions, and there's been quite a stalemate between the English-speaking regions and the Francophone regions in Cameroon. What seems to be the root of these protests? It
goes back to that point of cessation where you want your freedom, where you want your independence. Now, the English-speaking side also wants them to be considered important. Right. So this is why exactly that's happening.
That's happening. And of course, we're seeing the allegations or claims of police brutality and extrajudicial killings taking center stage there. Something that's not new to Kenya.
Yeah, definitely.
We've been battling with the same. But interesting enough is it's not just in Africa. This has been happening across the globe, even in Catalonia. Similar instances being reported. I don't know how, you know, as a nation, as the world, we can continue or begin to address issues of police brutality.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what's making headlines on the international front, and quite a few views coming here regarding what President John Pombe Magufuli has done in Tanzania. Jose here says, Magufuli is a dictator. The rule of law must take precedence over personal whims. I love Kenya, perhaps just the way it is. We also have Matara Innocent here says, as much as Magufuli is a dictator, fighting corruption has helped raise the economy. He acts his talk. And perhaps that's maybe what we need in the country. But I mean, I think many times it's a question of priorities as a country. What do you prioritize most? And that's what's going on here. And Anthony Nyundo here saying, I would like to comment on the ongoing debate. Please go on, Anthony. That brings us to a close on this edition of Weekend Express. Just 4 minutes to the top of the hour. From my colleague Fatia Noor and myself, Michelle Ngeledo, have yourself a wonderful morning. See you again at the top of the hour for more news updates.